By the Emperor's receding hairline, TARDIS, how in the hells did you manage to lose the keys again? Maybe they sprouted legs and scurried into that suspiciously evil-looking cave. Ha ha, very funny. You know, instead of standing there like two useless servitors, you could help me look for some Emperor's shiny codpiece. It's Orks!
Take some of this! Take some of that! Ooh, we want of those!
Is that a squeak with a power jaw? Oh, you call that a wog? I've seen grots with better... By the Emperor. What is it now? It's turtles. They're everywhere. They're swarming like the rippers at an all-you-can-eat buffet. There's so much biomass in here, it's like a hive ship's pantry. A blood raven, an orc, and a Tyranid walk into a cave. Heard it. Keep it down. I'm trying to record this for our battle logs. Could be worth a laugh later. Are you two making a hollow vid while I'm being eaten? Wait, do you smell that? It wasn't me this time, I swear. Is it the keys? Oh, Emperor, it's chaos. Now everything's on fire. There's blood coming out of the walls. You're talking about some guy with corn. Corn? I love corn. I've always wondered how he did that cool metal scat thing. On TERRA. No, I can't do it. He does it way better. Oh, brother. It's really impressive and all, but I don't think that's the one he's talking about. Oh. Right, of course. Carry on, TARDIS. Oh yeah, right, as I was saying.
Corn is going to make me into a new skull Chalice. And by the time I am done with this one and move on to the rest in our kleptomaniac chapter, I will make this cave run red with blood for eons.
And he's possessed. Yep, definitely possessed. Well, that's our cue. Fortress Monastery? Fortress Monastery. Hey, you think the chaplain will buy Possessed by Chaos as an excuse for losing the rhino this time? It's worth a shot. Wouldn't be our worst excuse. Hey, you wouldn't happen to have any corn on your Vox, would you? No, I don't. Hey, give me that back! Mac DeMarco? What are you, a sister of battle? Oh! Hey, cut it out! Give that back! He's irreverent and delightful!
Mine now! Tactical boom!
Relic Entertainment. The Omnissiah's chosen developers, blessed be their code, who've given us some of the finest strategy games in all of the galaxy. We're talking Homeworld, the kind of game that makes a Necron Tomb World look like a weekend getaway. Then there's Company of Heroes, a game where you could micromanage your way to victory while making the Iron Hands jealous of your precision, until a stray artillery shell turns your entire plan into a crater full of sadness. But hey, nobody's perfect, right? Like when they had to work with games for Windows Live? Yeah, do you remember that digital plague? It was like the Eye of Terror for PC gaming. Nothing worked, your saves disappeared into the warp, and just logging in felt like you were going to have to roll a sanity check. I mean, if you thought dealing with chaos demons was bad, try installing a patch on that monstrosity. It was like games for Windows Live was secretly run by the Dark Mechanicum, actively trying to ruin your day. And let's be real, even the Emperor's Light couldn't save you from that clusterfuck. Now, back to the good stuff. Relic's crowning achievement in the 41st millennium, Dawn of War 2, and its expansions, Chaos Rising, and, to a lesser extent, Retribution. We'll get to that in a second. These games took everything Relic learned from years of perfecting the art of making you cry over lost units and injected it directly into Warhammer 40k. Gone were the days of base building and pumping out units like some factory on a Forge world. Nope, here you had a squad of Space Marines on your command, and they would smash their way through hordes of Xenos with righteous fury only the Emperor himself could bless. The first two games, Dawn of War 2 and Chaos Rising, absolute bangers. We're talking Lehman Russ levels of perfection. Tight, squad-based combat, dripping with lore and tactical goodness. Every mission was like leading a personal crusade, where each bolt around had a purpose, and every Xeno slain felt like a small victory for humanity. It was pure, unadulterated glory. And then there's Retribution. Oh boy. If Dawn of War 2 is like an elite squad of Terminators kicking in the door, and Chaos Rising is the grizzled chaplain screaming, "For the Emperor!" at the top of his lungs, then Retribution is that one guardsman who shows up to battle without any ammo and a lasgun that's set to stun. Sure, he's trying, but deep down, you know he's here more for comic relief than actual combat, and he's not gonna make it. We'll break it down soon enough. But let's just say the campaign in Retribution is like watching a dreadnought trip over its own legs. It's kinda hilarious, but it's also just a little sad and disappointing. So, while Retribution may not have hit its mark, Dawn of War 2 and its expansion are where Relic really found their footing and charged forward like a true squad of Space Marines into battle. These games took the beloved lore of 40k and flipped the script on what we knew about real-time strategy at the time, leaving the cookie-cutter mechanics of the original Dawn of War in the dust. In stark contrast to the first installment, which was all about base building and unit spam, a glorious frenzy of resource collection and relentless clicking, Dawn of War 2 opts for a more refined, squad-based approach. Instead of cranking out units like a madman in an orc factory, you command a select group of soldiers, each with unique abilities and personalities. It's like upgrading from a rusty old chimera to a brand new land raider. Suddenly, you're not just a cog in a war machine. You're a gear of war. Not that type of gear. And as if swapping out epic large-scale battles for squad-based shenanigans wasn't enough of a kick in the teeth, they also cranked the dial up on the RPG elements. You've got stats and loot. Now, instead of just hurling squads at each other like a bunch of angry orcs in a Zerg rush, you can make some tactical decisions that actually matter. Feeling froggy? Pump up your commander's strength and vitality and send him charging into battle like a Chaos Space Marine on a caffeine binge. Or, how about strapping your sergeant into some shiny new Terminator armor? Then, slap some rockets on his shoulders, because nothing says I'm here to serve the Emperor like raining down death from above. And let's go back to that whole loot thing. This game showers you with all the glorious toys any 40k fan dreams of. From power fists that could turn a Tyranid into chunky salsa, to chain swords that scream slaughter louder than a berserker at a bloodbath. You've got bolters for those classic let's obliterate some Xenos moments, and plasma cannons for when you really want to make an entrance. And most of the armor and weapons even come with a slick new look. It's like a fashion show for the Imperium, and that's kind of wholly unexpected for a game back in the day. So gear up, because the battlefield is really about looking rad as hell while you're dabbing on some Xenos. And speaking of dynamic, the introduction of a cover system sort of elevates the tactical gameplay. This is something that Relic had been working on since Company of Heroes, and it allows your squads to hide and strategize like they've suddenly developed a survival instinct or something. The battlefield becomes a chessboard of sorts. Your positioning matters, and whoever is in the right place at the right time reigns supreme. It kind of makes each skirmish feel like a calculated little dance of death, rather than a chaotic free-for-all on who could press the Q key faster. At least on higher difficulties. You can still kind of deathball pretty effectively on the lower ones. Just a heads up, I'm about to talk about the story, so if you have plans to play this game yourself, or if you're hoping you can go back to 2009, go ahead and skip ahead. After taking a serious beating in the Karava campaign, the Blood Ravens have staggered back to their home turf, subsector Aurelia, to pick up the pieces. But, surprise surprise, they're greeted by a fresh wave of orc attacks. They're ready to stomp them out faster than a foot soldier's shoddy lasgun. The game officially kicks off with you and Sergeant Tarkus deep striking onto the hellish desert of Calderis to back up Captain Davian Thule and his merry band of misfits. You kick some green ass, you send the orcs packing, you encounter a greasy git named Mech Bad Zappa in his war truck, but of course he escapes like a cockroach. You feel like you've won the day, but in reality you know they're gonna be back. After that, it's just a quick hop and a skip from the cruiser Armageddon, and it takes you to a hamlet where Scout Sergeant Cyrus is holding the line. You're busting some orc heads and saving You prove that even heavily armored lunatics can flex their muscles when the galaxy calls for a smackdown. Then word comes in that the orcs are going full green tide at other locations. Cyrus points out that these brainless greenskins are displaying an odd bit of tactical finesse, as if someone is pulling their strings, like a bunch of sad green puppets. Thule's on the same page because a little paranoia is healthy in this type of galaxy. Your target is Skykiller, a storm boy knob with more hot air than actual brains, followed by a war boss named Gut-Wrencher, who looks like he was designed by a blind orc on a bender. And after squishing these two, you learn that both have been hanging out at Fellhammer Mine, and guess who else is there? That's right, Bad Zappa. So, you enter the mine. You catch a glimpse of some sneaky Eldar shit before they vanish quicker than your patience during one of their long-winded lore dumps. Luckily, Sergeant Thaddeus swoops in like a well-timed joke to save you from some Eldar monologue. Because, let's face it, everybody needs a guy with a jump pack on their squad who specializes in squishing elves. Anyhow, you finally track down Bad Zappa, who's knee-deep in a brawl with an Eldar warlock and a squad of guardians. Turns out he's got some weird mechanical eye that lets him see the Eldar who are trying to disguise themselves as orcs. It's a weird plot twist. Anyway, the Blood Ravens take down the warlock, but of course, Bad Zappa slips away again. and as the warlock breathes his last breath, he cryptically warns of an even bigger threat. Yeah, sure, whatever, nerd. Next. And what is next is Typhon Primaris to deal with an Eldar warp spider exarch, who's riling up the orcs and giving them a reason to party. After that little detour, Thule calls you back to Calderis because Bad Zappa is launching an all-out attack on the capital, and things are getting weird. Citizens report mutated plants and little purple critters feasting on livestock like they're in an all-you-can-eat buffet. That sounds familiar. Cyrus starts sweating over the astropaths mumbling about a shadow in the warp. Everyone else is too busy gearing up for orc stomping to give a damn. But finally, you corner Bad Zappa and put him down for good, the sneaky little bastard. Plot twist again. Now there's a full-blown Tyranid invasion. This is the real threat the Eldar were too busy sneaking away to mention. Thule takes a nasty hit from a Tyranid warrior after roasting some of the Tyranids. So you return to Typhon with Thule in critical condition. This is when things really begin to ramp up in the game, especially when Captain Gabriel Angelos, the big cheese from the first game, hollers that he's bringing the entire 4th Company to help kick some Tyranid ass. Now, he gives you a list of tasks that could put a Chaos Worshipper to sleep. Grab a pure sample of biotoxin to whip up a poison. Reclaim an astronomic array. Take control of Angel... I'm falling asleep just reading it. Anyway, you can tackle these things in any order, but trust me, you want to do the astronomic array first for some orbital bombardment shenanigans. The Angel Forge for some sweet new armor, and then the biotoxin so that Thule can ditch the hospital gown and kick some serious ass as a dreadnought. Meanwhile, the hive city of Meridian is getting pounded by Eldar attacks, with Idrinel, a farseer of Ulthwé, scheming to lure the entire Tyranid fleet to the planet, save her own craft world in the process. You know, just a casual Tuesday for the Eldar. So you gotta go handle that. After finishing all your objectives, the Tyranid poison is ready to roll, but hold your horses. Captain Angelos' ship, the Litany of Fury, is caught in a psychic ambush from the hive mind and is about to get lost in the warp like a bad thought. Reinforcements aren't out of the picture, but guess what? The hive mind is weakened and shifts its focus to Typhon, chow down. Your entire strike team deploys to the planet, administering the poison to the hive mind through its nasty little feeder tendrils. Things are looking grim when the Armageddon bites the dust and Gordian takes a dirt nap.
Armageddon! Come in! Come in!
Just when it seems like all hope is lost, and the Tyranids are about to rip you to shreds in a final stand, Captain Gabriel Angelos and his entire company drop in like a ton of bricks. He leads you and your squad in a battle against the Hive Tyrant Alpha, delivering the final smackdown to the Hive fleet. As the Tyranids fall, Gabriel waxes poetic about how the Emperor created the Space Marines, blah 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 blah, war forged, blah blah blah. And that, my friends, is how you cap off the campaign in the Grim Darkness, where there's only war and a hell of a lot of fun to be had. Dawn of War 2 is honestly probably the best of all 3 of these games, and the story is really a lot better than I put it, so I encourage you to go play it yourself. Now that you've conquered all the orcs, bullied all the Eldar, and exterminated the Tyranids, along comes Chaos Rising to throw a whole new flavor of grimdark into the mix. This time, it's not just Xenos that want you dead. Oh no, now you've got to deal with the ruinous powers of Chaos. Because if there's anything that Warhammer 40k needed more of, it's traitors whispering sweet heretical nothings into your ear while you're just trying to do your damn job. And the game comes with a new corruption mechanic. It's a glorious trap. On one hand, staying loyal to the Emperor is great and all, and affects your ending. Those Chaos powers? Maybe that shiny new Power Claw would be a little more fun if it came with some spicy corruption perks. All the squad, except for Thule, can benefit from these perks, so it's fun to mix and match, go full corrupt or pure, and see what ending you can eke out. It's a neat little mechanic that doesn't ever really feel like it becomes burdensome. And speaking of heresy, enter Jonah Orion, your shiny new squad mate in Chaos Rising. And wouldn't you know it, he's a psyker. That's right, just when you thought you'd seen enough weird warp shenanigans, they give you a dude whose literal job is to bend the laws of reality with his mind. It's like handing a stick of dynamite to a kid and telling him not to play with fire. Psychers in 40k are basically walking time bombs, always one bad dice roll away from turning into a demon-infested meat puppet. But hey, in the meantime, Jonah's got some serious warp-fueled power to back it up. And he's pretty OP, honestly. You'll get interesting new psychic abilities like tossing enemies around like ragdolls, or invading their personal space to the point they explode. He's the kind of character who makes you feel like the God Emperor himself is reaching out through your screen just to smite the heretics. Try not to think about the fact that one day he might snap and start speaking in tongues while summoning demons. You know, again, typical Tuesday shit in Warhammer. And the loot in this game gets even better too. You've got power claws that turn a space marine into a blender, and a whole bunch of new unholy chaos-infused weapons that are there to tempt you with corruption points. Plus, the visuals are spruced up too. It adds like a darker, moodier environment that perfectly matched the whole vibe of everything's falling apart and it's probably your fault. Sidestepping for a second, my favorite mission in this expansion is when you're sent aboard the Judgment of Carrion, a creepy as hell Space Hulk. If you don't know what that is, Space Hulk is basically what happens when you let a bunch of ships and space debris crash into each other and then let it rot and fester for a few centuries. Anyway, the Carrion is no exception. It's got decaying hallways, dimly lit corridors, and there's an overwhelming sense that something is about to pop out and murder you at every turn. This mission is really claustrophobic, it's nerve-wracking, and it is a great breakup of the pace from being on planetary outdoor missions. You know, just casually sifting through mountains of Tyranid guts and God knows what kind of Xeno slime for the genetic material of your chapter. It's like the worst Easter egg hunt imaginable, but instead of candy, you're fishing out your ancestors' goo from the bowels of a haunted space wreck. Surprise, surprise, we're about to do more spoilers. Skip, or don't. It don't matter. Alright, so the Blood Ravens roll up on Aurelia with their new strike cruiser, the Retribution, ready for action. They get a distress call in their encoded Vox, but it turns out it's a setup.
Gun them down!
They're ambushed by the House Vandis traitor guardsmen. After escaping that hot mess, Force Commander and Davian Thule, again, who's now a badass dreadnought, they rush to save Librarian Jonah Orion from an Eldar raid. Then, we return to Meridian, where Governor DeRosa is having her own orc problem at Angel Forge. But, of course, things go from bad to worse when Chaos Space Marines from the Black Legion, led by none other than Eliphas the Inheritor, who just doesn't know when to stay dead, shows up trying to seize the forge. The Blood Ravens beat back the Chaos scum, but it's only the beginning. Back on Aurelia, the team uncovers a Chaos Temple after slogging through artillery, cultists, and more traitor guardsmen. Naturally, they blow it to pieces, but not before being taunted by Aragast the Pillager, the Black Legion's head honcho. As Aurelia starts tearing itself apart thanks to the warp, the Blood Ravens find out there's a traitor in their own ranks, feeding Chaos their Vox codes. And after some more chaos, corruption, and confusion, they end up hunting down a Space Hulk, the Judgment of Carrion, where they recover their fallen brother's gene seed, fight Tyranids, and discover that their chapter's mess goes even deeper than they thought. Turns out their chapter master, Azariah Kairos, has been in bed with Chaos for a long time. And now there's a greater demon of Nurgle, Ulcair, on the loose thanks to Eliphas. In the end, after some traitor hunting, the Force Commander and his squad finally take down Ulcair in a brutal final battle. Eliphas, that immortal bastard, manages to warp out just before getting squashed. Again. Because things can never be simple, they now have to figure out how to deal with Kairos, who's been fully corrupted by Chaos. Gabriel Angelos declares victory over Ulcair, but the Blood Ravens' real fight is just beginning. Now it's time to deal with their heretic chapter master. Because when it rains in 40k, it certainly pours. And it's usually blood. So just when you thought the Blood Ravens had their hands full with demons, traitors, and enough heresy to make the Inquisition blush, along comes Dawn of War 2 Retribution, where they throw 6 playable factions in the mix. Yeah, 6. You can now lead not just the Blood Ravens, but the Orks, the Eldar, the Tyranids, the Imperial Guard, and Chaos Space Marines, each with their own campaigns. It sounds pretty sweet, but really, it's only sweet on paper. Here's the kicker. While it sounds like they were aiming for variety, the whole thing feels like a buffet where none of the dishes are really fully cooked. The RPG mechanics, which were really great in Chaos Rising, they take a nosedive. The loot, there's less of it. The skills, they're watered down and recycled. And don't even get me started on the pathfinding. It makes your units wander around like they're lost in the warp. Sure, you get to blow up stuff with more toys and have a fling with a few new factions, but it's like dating someone only to realize your ex was actually way, way better. Plus, one thing you'll notice right off the bat in Retribution is that most of the maps feel a hell of a lot more linear and closed off than the previous games. Remember the days of wide open battlefields and tactical freedom? Yeah, that's kinda gone. Now you're funneled down narrow lanes like a conga line of powered armored lemmings. takes a lot away from the tactile creativity of the older games. And the whole presentation, it just is really a lot less appealing overall. The environments lack the same grit and polish we had in Chaos Rising and Dawn of War 2. But hey, don't get me wrong, it's not all doom and gloom. Retribution has its moments. There are some genuinely cool set pieces thrown in the mix here. For one, squaring off against an ascending demonic Kyrus is a pure 40k spectacle if nothing else. Nothing says boss fight like a guy who's supposed to be your chapter master, suddenly sprouting wings and turning into a warp-powered nightmare. And credit where it's due, the cinematics are still top-notch. They're sparse, sure, but when they show up, it's pure glory. It's dramatic, it's bombastic, just the right amount of over the top. It's really just too bad they couldn't sprinkle a little more of that into the rest of the game. Oh, and hey, I gotta give the Tyranids and Orks some love. Sure, the Tyranid campaign is basically eat, swarm, repeat, but there is something incredibly satisfying about playing as a relentless hive mind and devouring everything in sight. And then of course, there's the Orks. Playing as the Orks is always unhinged fun. Their playstyle's chaotic in all the best ways, and they seriously have the best voice lines.
I'll corrupt you good!
They even did in Dawn of War 1, so that's not really surprising. Every moment with the Orks is like hanging out with a bunch of football hooligans who discovered chainswords, and I fucking love it. Hearing them scream "wah" never gets old. It's a goldmine of comedy, and I would highly recommend if you play any campaign from Retribution, play that one. To be honest, a lot of Retribution's hiccups likely came down to the fact that Relic Entertainment at the time was really strapped for cash, and they were racing against the clock to push out a product. It's not exactly a secret that they were going through some financial turbulence at the time, and you can really feel it in this game. There's a lot of this that feels rushed and cobbled together. I feel like if they had more time and money, we would have had a more complete game, like the previous expansion. Either way, taking that into consideration, Retribution is still the weakest link in the trilogy. It does conclude the storyline that was built over 2 previous games to a satisfactory degree, but it also leaves a lot to be desired in the long run. And don't get me started on Dawn of War 3. Bit of a caveat on these spoilers, I'm only going to be covering the Bloodraven campaign, as technically I believe it's the one that is most canon, though I also think the Elder one has some canon events as well. It's a little confusing. Gone away is the player character Force Commander, and now we're playing the GOAT, Apollo Diomedes. We're set on Typhon Primaris, ready to throw down against rival factions. Think Space Marines clashing with Chaos, Eldar battling Orks, and the Imperial Guard going toe-to-toe with Tyranids. So after squashing the opposing leader, you learn the grim news. The Imperial Inquisition has deemed this sector is a lost cause, and it's gearing up to rain exterminatus on all habitable worlds. Meanwhile, the Bloodraven Chapter Master has his own twisted plan to use the coming exterminatus as a Khorne-sanctioned bloodbath to ascend to daemonhood. Each faction has its reasons to want him dead. Space Marines and Imperial Guard want to smite the Chaos, the Eldar see it as a chance to rid themselves of an ancient foe, and the Orks just want to smash some heads and steal a hat. The Tyranids are itching to overrun the sector, as they are wont to do, etc., etc. Anyhow, Diomedes and his crew, which are mostly borrowed from the previous games, such as Cyrus and Davian Thule, scramble their way off Typhon, narrowly dodging a local cult. They hop over to Calderis, where they clash with Kyrus' chaos-corrupted Bloodravens, who are hell-bent on purging the planet. And then, after obliterating a warp portal on Aurelia, they discover that Kyrus has set his eyes on Meridian, where the traitor guardsmen are already doing his bidding. Upon their return to Typhon Primaris to confront Kyrus, they're blindsided by Eldar from the craft world Biel Tan, who were set up to some silly ritualistic Eldar nonsense. And after they bite the dust, Kyrus then finally spills the beans. That ritual they were doing? Yeah, that was keeping the Inquisition's fleet at bay. You actually ended up doing Kyrus' work for him. Good job. Just as the Inquisition arrives to commence that exterminatus, Diomedes and the rest of the Bloodravens gotta escape Typhon before it's turned to cinder. It's a pretty cool set piece. Their next stop, the Judgment of Carrion. Again, it's pretty much just padding. But there, they deduce that he's hiding on Cyrene, a planet that has already been fucked to hell and back, which means the Inquisition won't bother looking there. On Cyrene, Diomedes launches a full-on assault against Kyrus' motley crew of Chaos Space Marines and traitorous Bloodravens. But just when things heat up, Kyrus starts his ascension into demonhood. By then, Gabriel and his third company crash the party, only to get their asses handed to them. So it's up to you to make the final push and put that twisted bastard down for good. for the chapter. Wrapping up our chaotic journey through Dawn of War 2 and its expansions, it's pretty clear that this series has left an indelible mark on the Warhammer 40,000 universe. From the harrowing battles against the Tyranids to the treacherous plots of corrupted Blood Ravens, the game has woven a rich tapestry of lore and gameplay that has stood the test of time. The blend of intense tactical combat, engaging storytelling, and the sheer variety of factions makes it a standout experience in the franchise. Even many years after its release, Dawn of War 2 still remains a beloved classic among fans. It's captivated players with its memorable characters, its relentless action, and the memes.
People! Oh, Granddad, I have faced more fearsome times!
The expansions, while they may have had their hiccups, still offer unique twists and add fresh perspectives that keep the excitement alive. With its combination of RPG elements and strategic gameplay, it's really no wonder why many people consider it their favorite 40k title. Whether you're some battle-hardened grognard who's read every book in the Horus Heresy, or some fresh-faced recruit with unpainted minis, this game will continue to deliver epic moments worthy of the grim darkness of the far future. Now, if only we could sort out that traitor issue, but that's a whole different demon problem for a whole different video. Until then, remember, the Emperor protects, but so does a well-aimed bolter. Stay vigilant, brothers. Here's a little extra for the boys.
In the holy rites of the machine community, Dawn of War 2 presents a challenge worthy of any tech priest. The ancient relic of this sacred code resists compliance on modern systems, throwing forth startup crashes, core-based errors, and the cursed blue-screen demon. But fear not, from the archives of the Omnissiah, there exists a comprehensive Steam guide, blessed by the machine god himself, detailing the litany of fixes required to banish these tech heresies. With the proper invocation